Hello, I'm back after a long absence. I've been busy doing many things, but let's just get back into the pens. So here today we have a Pilot Custom Urushi. Very excited to get into this one. I got this from a very good friend for a very good price, which I'll be discussing later. But enough talk, let's just get straight into the parts of the pen. Well, since I got this pen secondhand from my friend, I don't really have a box for it, but pretty sure you guys don't really care about that. I'll put a picture on the screen. It's just a pretty normal looking box. Nothing so special about it. But here we go. On the top here we have the top finial with black plastic. All the black parts on this pen are made from plastic. So here is the top finial. It just has a nice gold ring inside of it. Nothing so special. It's just a very simplistic part of the pen. Then after that we got another gold ring. There's a lot of gold rings on this pen, actually, but okay. After that, we have the Pilot clip, very traditional Pilot clip, except this one is a slightly special version because you can see it's just ever so slightly wider on the top and ever so slightly longer. I mean, it is a bigger clip because it is a bigger pen, but it is still usable. Then we have the cap band here, 2 gold rings, one thin, one thick. And on the thick one, you can see it says Custom Urushi 3 stars, Pilot, made in Japan. It is very nice stamping work right there. Looks great, looks high quality, and I like it. Then we have a taper down from the cap to the barrel of the pen. All this is obviously vermilion Urushi lacquer over ebonite. This is an ebonite pen at heart. Then on the very end here we got another gold ring and a pretty substantial taper for the end finial of the pen, which is just black plastic again. Then we can take off the cap here, which is almost 2 turns, and the cap is actually rather heavy. So I mean, okay, you really shouldn't post this pen because I don't know about threads on Urushi lacquer, but let's say you did post it, it would be severely too large and severely back weighted. So I wouldn't use this pen posted. But after you take off the cap here, we have the nib and the section. The section is all this black plastic with some very nice and subtle threads and a gold ring. It's not so interesting. Let's take a look at the nib. So here's the nib in a close-up view. This is Pilot's size 30 nib, but that means absolutely nothing, okay? It's basically a number 8 nib. It is ever so slightly bigger than the Montblanc 149's number 8 nib, so it's definitely not a small nib, for sure. And it is a very beautiful nib with that dual-tone scroll work over there. This is a broad nib, as you can see, and it is an 18 karat gold nib with a plastic feed, a very juicy plastic feed. And something interesting is actually, if you take a look here on the bottom left, you can see those 4 numbers. That actually refers to the production date of this nib. So 11 would be the month, so November, and 18 would be the year. So this nib was produced in November of 2018. Taking the pen apart from this, we can see that unfortunately it is a cartridge converter pen, which at this price point that is something to complain about. And it cannot be eyedropper converted because there are metal components. But it is nice that they include a little O-ring there. It's not to seal the pen, it's just so that when you screw the pen body back on, there's not any damage to the threads. This comes standard with a Con 70 converter. However, the one that's inside of here right now is a Con 50 converter. That's because I do not like the Con 70 converter. It is the push converter that has more capacity but is infamously hard to clean, and I just don't like how complicated it is. It really does not have to be so complicated. This is just a generic, converter. This is the same as every other converter out there on the market, except that it is Pilot proprietary, because unfortunately Pilot converters are proprietary. So that is basically all there is to the pen. Let's take a look at some size comparisons. Okay, now that we've done that, let's do just a few pen comparisons with similar sized pens. Here we have a Montblanc 149, and you can tell the Urushi, the custom Urushi, dwarfs the 149, which is really something. That is really saying something. And here we have the Pelikan M1000, pretty much dwarfs the M1000 as well, which is also really saying something. And here we have the Visconti Homo sapien, not oversized. This is just the regular size, but you can take a look. This is a pretty normal sized pen, and yeah, that custom Urushi is just a monster. As for nib size comparisons, you can see that the custom Urushi easily secures itself within the class of number 8 nibs, and it might even be slightly bigger than these other two. Let's take a look at some other nib sizes with a number 6. For example, let me find one. Oh, here it is. Here is the custom Urushi nib next to a number 6 nib, and you can see just how much bigger that is. Although, you know, Pilot calls this a size 30, that means absolutely nothing. It is a number 8 nib. So now looking at some width comparisons, here is the custom Urushi next to the M1000. You can see that, you know, they almost look like they have the same width, but you can see that the custom Urushi actually has a pretty significant taper at the very end of the pen. So the pen barrel is actually thicker than the M1000, that's already a pretty thick pen. And that's even more apparent when we look at the cap of the two pens here. And you can see the custom Urushi is just that much thicker than the M1000. So this is a pretty large pen, and I'll talk more about this after I show you the writing sample. See if I still remember how to do this. This is a Tomoe River notebook because I'm running desperately low on paper. Here we have the Pilot, custom Urushi. This is an 18 karat gold nib, and the ink, yes, that's what comes next. The ink is Monteverde brown sugar. I forgot to mention this is a broad nib, and it really is a broad. You can see the size of my writing is huge, and the lines are pretty huge as well. The paper is Tomoe River, which is a great paper. This is basically the best paper I've ever used. And let's take a look at line variation. So on the side strokes and on the down strokes, I'm trying to apply as little pressure as possible. And it is somewhat stubby, like the downstrokes are just a little bit thicker than the side strokes, but it's really not that noticeable. And this pen is so smooth that if I just don't even apply any pressure, I'm just like letting it rest on the page, it just writes by itself. And it feels like writing on glass. This is basically almost smoother than my M1000, which is really saying something because that pen is phenomenal. So let's do the usual here. The brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Very, very nice writer, very wet. Let's take a look at just how wet it is. Doesn't really give you much of an idea, but just look at that streak. This is a very, very wet pen. It also has some flex to it, although I don't like pushing this pen, so this is all I'm gonna show, but this is a very, very soft nib, and it is very bouncy. So it actually springs back surprisingly fast. It's very responsive. So it is very, very easy to write with this pen, and you really do not have to try very hard to enjoy writing with it. So with that, let's get on to my thoughts about this thing. So how do I feel about this pen? Well, it is the most amazing pen I have in my collection. It is my favorite pen by far to write with in my collection. So I do not regret buying this even slightly. However, that's because the price I paid for this is a lot less than most of you guys will get. So I did my little check here. Let me take a look at my notes. On Goulet pens, this is $1,600 or 1,236 pounds sterling, which is a lot of money to pay for this pen. For that price, am I willing to pay that price to get this pen? No, I'm not really willing to pay that price to get any pen at the moment. But I got this pen secondhand from a good friend for about $662 or 511 pounds sterling, which is, well, that is just an amazing, amazing price. That is almost less than a Montblanc 149. I mean, it is less than a lot of Montblanc 149s out there. So that really brings me back to a point that I say in a lot of my videos, which is don't buy your pens firsthand. If you can try the pen before buying it secondhand, always buy secondhand. Yeah, it's just, it gives you so much more value for the money that you are paying. Obviously, I'm not saying just buy random listings on eBay that you don't trust and end up getting a damaged pen, which is not what you'd expected. I'm saying you can buy secondhand pens from those authorized dealers and friends that you trust, or even better, you can test the pen before you buy them to really make sure they're the real deal, like this one. And I got a great deal off this pen. Besides that, as a writer, it is wonderful. This pen is smooth, it is springy, it is bouncy, it is wet, it is consistent, it never skips, and it has that just that right amount of feedback to give you that tactile sensation of writing on a page. It is just a wonderful pen. It is a very perfect weight. It's not too heavy or too light, and it's not very balanced. So when you write with it, you don't feel like your hand is getting fatigued. And it has very premium materials on it. So when you write with it, you're touching something that feels very nice. So in terms of writing, honestly, this is a perfect pen. And it better be for $1,600. And for looks, honestly, no complaints here either. I mean, it looks elegant. It looks very out there. It definitely grabs attention. If you pull this out in a Starbucks, don't pull this out in a Starbucks. People are going to look at you. And it definitely sends the message across. Whatever message you're trying to get across, it will send it for you. The Urushi lacquer, I mean, that's just an extra layer of human touch. It just adds that much more specialness to the pen. And really, I do feel like I'm holding something special in my hand when I'm writing with this, as opposed to maybe, an M1000 or a 149. I know that it is an expensive pen, but it still just feels like a pen. That's all it is. This honestly feels like a masterpiece or something of an artwork. But again, for $1,600, it better do. I guess the one complaint I have is the fact that this is a cartridge converter pen. Pilot could have made this a piston filler or a vacuum filler, but they didn't, and there's no excuse for that. Frankly, at this price point, I would expect it to be either of those two things. But alas, it is a cartridge converter pen. I guess at the end of the day, it just really comes down to, are you willing to pay $1,600 for a cartridge converter pen, which is huge, has a number 8 two-tone gold nib, and is made with ebonite and Urushi lacquer? For many, that would be yes, but for me, honestly, $1,600 is a lot, and I'm not willing to spend that on this pen, which is why I didn't. I spent around $700. So, to end things off, buy fountain pens secondhand. Peace.